Everybody, Dr. Meri Crowley. I'm here in the studio, Juan SAVIN. We're going to be talking about some updates on the Tina Peters case. We really need to be praying for this. I think that all of these calls, prayers, all these podcasts that Juan has been doing this week, I know has been making a difference. So today's program is sponsored by My Pillow. Today, right now, they have 80% off on different types of things that they have. You have so many different types of products, including, as you know, pillows and, robes, slippers. Go there, 80% off if you use my promo code Meri, Meri, right in the middle of America. Make it your one-stop shop. They've got a special sale from now until Christmas. So get it done today. Go to mypillow.com, promo code Meri. So anyway, Juan, it's good to see you. How have you been?
Good. Slogging away here trying to keep the pressure on to get Tina out. And it's a grinding thing. You think it's grinding out on this side. Imagine being her in solitary confinement 22 hours a day with these bright fluorescent lights, bearing down on you. They never turn them off. You got to throw something over your head to even get a little bit of darkness. She has, her situation has improved a little bit because they went into a broom closet somewhere and she's had only a 2-inch mattress, thick mattress. It's like sleeping on a cardboard sheet. Her cell has been so cold. She's been so miserable. Her body's just aching. And she's got a cough back that is reminiscent of the cough she had when she was first diagnosed with lung cancer, and where she had a third of the right lung removed. She can at least warm up something to drink, and that's a big help. Now, I will tell you that somewhere overnight, her commissary, the ability to receive funds so she can buy something at the store, because the food that's there at the prison is just mystery meat, who knows what, everything else. So she tries to get a piece of fruit here and there. Having a place to warm up something with the microwave is a big deal. Nobody gets that, and so she can buy some tea and like that. But it's still, when you want to get prisoners under control, big hulking prisoners that are, don't give deference to anybody, want to push themselves around, you put them in the hole, you put them in solitary, and they become more compliant fairly quickly because it's just miserable. You don't have any contact with anybody. They put your food through a slot in the door. It is and you're cut off human contact. It is a very grinding thing. That's Tina's situation. If they've shut off the commissary, if what we understand is accurate, now we're just reading tea leaves. We're just trying to figure out what's that mean. When they're getting ready to move a prisoner, they do that so the money is not in one place, it's getting ready to go somewhere else. Most likely, that would mean they're getting ready to move her to a different facility. There are other facilities which are less grinding location, and they know everybody's looking. In fact, there's now a federal investigation going on over the last several weeks that President Trump announced a couple weeks ago, looking at the conditions inside the Colorado prisons and not complying with federal conditions. I have, besides Tina, I have another group that has been documenting conditions there for a couple of years, and somebody specifically in the same facility as Tina's in, and very close now to 5. Thing that people don't fully realize in this fight over federal authority, over state authority, many times in our history, not just one or two, the federal government has had to come in and take control of state prisons because they do not meet minimum guidelines, requirements that are the civil rights of prisoners. in the way that Colorado is at risk right now. This prison or other facilities because of the conditions that they're being operated under, and the fact that Colorado's on notice and hasn't resolved these very important issues. So there's things happening. And, one of the questions I get, yeah, but Tina's health is failing. That's very true. She doesn't have long months while somebody goes through a court process. And just so everybody knows, President Trump is painfully aware of that. There is some specific constraints on things that he does or will do that are within this consideration. And so everybody's aware of that, but I don't expect it to be long weeks. I think it will be much closer in before we see something dramatic happen. And President Trump said he's going to have to do something drastic months ago, and I think we're there. So we'll
Now,
see.
how long ago did President Trump actually come out and said he pardoned her? Was that like a week ago? I know that it was all over the news that he had pardoned her. Of course, that was a federal pardon, and they're saying because it's a state issue, they're not releasing it. So the pressure's on. You've been on all week long on various shows, literally going night and day, talking about this to put the pressure on. And so, what can people do, Juan, so we can all be involved? I know that we have a 24-hour Open the Heavens prayer line that we've got people praying for Tina actually around the clock. I mean, I've got other things that they're praying for too, but we've really highlighted her as one of the points that we're participating in with prayer every day. So what other things can people do, like to actively move this case along? Can they call the White
Well,
House?
here's where I'm at. The reason that the pardon came when it did is that for several weeks, Tina was trending over at the White House call-in line, right at the top, and it just stayed there. And so everyone's paying attention on this. When President Trump issued the pardon, which was he actually announced it in a truth statement on the 10th of December. On the 11th, he actually signed the order. As soon as the signed order was done, Tina's Colorado attorney, she has a group of attorneys on her case, and her Colorado attorney, John Case, went to the prison and presented that pardon material in person. The guards kind of sloughed him off. They had somebody from command come down and said, yeah, we're not releasing her to you. We don't recognize the president's authority in this situation. It's a state matter, not a federal matter. And we're not releasing her. Go away. And, he literally asked them, are you telling me to leave? And they said, yes. So he remained in his vehicle in the parking lot while other communications were made and to the prison, and came back, about 40 minutes later to the door. Have you guys changed your mind? And that was because of other communications coming from federal authorities. And they said, nope, I haven't changed our mind. And so he was asked to leave. Now, that's all important because you have to formalize something like this with an actual presentation that is then formally denied. Just sending some paperwork over, you don't know who read it, who's involved, etc. They formally refused to release Tina. They don't recognize President Trump's authority in this matter. Now, this is really important. Just because somebody asserts something's a certain way, even if they're in a position of authority, doesn't mean it's true. There's a case called the Merrill versus Federal Crop Insurance Corporation, and the decision in this case was stated very clearly. Anyone, that would include guards at La Vista Prison, that would include management all the way up to the director of the prisons. It says that anyone who engages in any type of business arrangement, contract, agreement, understanding with a government employee or agent, it's on the person doing the contact. In other words, if you're a prison guard and you're working for the government and you have management or leadership that tells you to do a certain thing, it's on you to determine if that person actually has the authority to tell you to do anything or to agree to do something, enter into a contract with someone. So it's up to us to challenge, showing where you have the legal right, legal authority, whatever, to do what you purport you have the legal authority to do. Now, why is that important here? The governor of Colorado says that he doesn't have to obey a federal pardon from President Trump because this is a state matter. The reality is there's no precedence for that in this type of a context. There's not. He says that, but there is no context where, for example, no case like this has ever been heard in any court. There's no standing court opinion on a case like this that establishes that. And the understanding has always been that the president can decide in a matter of pardon all the way down the states that actually has a lot of history. It was walked away from a bit or walked back from after the Civil War, but there's no formal decision like that, and it was just a matter of practice. So the reason that that's kind of important is, let's do it slightly differently. Has there ever been a case where a state overturned a presidential pardon? No, never. Not one time have they ever had a case. Once the president issues a pardon, even in a state matter, nobody has ever gone to court and won against that. Colorado might think they get the chance to do that and drag this out. And of course, every moment they're shaving hours, days, weeks, months, years off of Tina's life in this very hellish location. And by the way, women in prison fare much worse than men do. It's literally, every day you're in there costs 2 days of your life that's left. It's very, very debilitating.
Well, and also, Juan, Tina is
Yes.
very slim to begin with. As she lost quite a bit of weight.
She lost quite a bit of weight. Somebody was with her the other day, about 2 weeks ago, who hadn't seen her since the day she went into prison. Literally was very shocked at her overall physical condition. And this has been, people think of just, you're sequestered from the rest of your life, but it has a toll that is not just physical, it's mental too. And even being in solitary is just a grinding thing. There's nothing to do. You're sitting there, can't contact, can't do anything. Or only contact with people and friends. She gets to use her computer. She does get to use that 2 hours a day out in another area. When she's out in that other area, they have to, put all the other prisoners in their cells, etc. She now has 4 prison guards that escort her when she's outside her cell to protect her from other prisoners. That's the story anyway. The reality is they're metering federal officers coming into the prison, keeping it at, a couple people at a time. And if they try to go and do something to, say we're taking custody of Tina, they got 4 people around her. Now, the converse of that is Tina, somebody mentioned about going to do a jailbreak and patriots going there and all that. Tina's not going anywhere. She's not going anywhere unless it's totally legal, absolutely official. She's not participating in anything. She'll just sit down in her cell and wait. She's not a criminal. Nothing that she's done from the outset has been criminal. She was portrayed as a criminal. She was prosecuted criminally, yet the prosecution of Tina Peters was criminal. You understand, she was operating under federal authority. And here's where it's really important. As the elections officer, she's the county clerk. In this role, she's the elections officer there in Mesa County. What she's not just serving the voters in Mesa County or the state in bringing materials to the state. She's technically, specifically, actually an officer of the House of Representatives during a presidential election. The material that she's collecting as an officer of the House is material that is about the vote. She's recording it, she's logging it, she's preserving it, and that is presented to the electors. The electors then go from the state to Washington, D.C., and physically within the House chamber announce the vote from each state. Those electors are using information that's compiled by the clerks in the counties in the state. So, and there's, written law concerning this. It's not like it's just an ethereal thing. She is a functionary of the U.S. House of Representatives when she is compiling the vote for the electors to go to the House in a presidential election. As such, she is a federal in the employ of the federal government. It's what she's doing. To say that the state has authority in this situation is turning the law on its ear. What the governor of Colorado has said is that Tina is incarcerated under state prosecution. Well, there was 41 motions while Tina was on trial in Colorado and before the trial, trying to point out to the judge and prosecutor that they didn't have legal authority to prosecute Tina Peters on an election violation within that presidential vote. The motions were denied 41 times during her trial. In other words, what you had was a show trial. And within the state, the judge and the prosecutor had a little deal going that they were not going to let Tina, get to anybody at the federal level. And you have to remember, it happened under the Biden administration. So they were completely uninterested in assisting a citizen to break free from the state court. So her life was pirated on false pretenses by persons inside the state of Colorado to do a prosecution and trial, which had no basis in law and wasn't challenged, and they wouldn't let anyone raise those issues within the trial. So she, kangaroo court. The judge withheld that from being told to the jury, made the jury instructions so that they almost literally couldn't do anything but find Tina guilty. Now, that's going to get overturned eventually. For context, you have to think of what happened when Colorado Attorney General, Secretary of State, government officials decided that because Trump had been found guilty in a felony in New York, that he could be removed from the vote in 2024 from the presidential election. And so they were going to remove him from the ballot. There was a dozen other states lined up to also remove Trump from the ballot in Colorado. That in the state courts was found to be absolutely true. They decided that, yes, we're going to remove President Trump from the 2024 ballot. It was appealed all the way through the federal courts, all the way to the Supreme Court on an emergency basis. All of the courts said, yep, you can remove Trump from the ballot, all the way up to the Supreme Court. What did the Supreme Court do? The Supreme Court told all of the lower courts, all of the Colorado courts, what are you thinking? Are you out of your minds? And you know why I say it that emphatically? Because it was an ultra rare, ultra rare 9-0 vote by the Supreme Court. Not even the most liberal of the three liberal justices, massively liberal justices, could figure out a way to stand justice on its ear and agree that Trump could be taken off the uh, voter, the, the the vote in 2024 in Colorado, right. And all the other states had to stand down. So just that's why you go to court and do stuff. You couldn't turn constitutional law on its ear just to suit Colorado, and Trump was on the vote. So.
Well, and Juan, let me just interject. There's been a lot of problems with these judges. You know, Obama put in a lot of these corrupt judges. This has been a major problem that President Trump is dealing with, and this is part of the situation that we're dealing with here. Is that correct with this particular judge with Tina Peters' case?
Well, this judge is an he's an activist judge. There's no question about it. He went out of his way during the sentencing to point out that Tina was a threat to society because she was talking about the corruption in the election system, and because she wouldn't shut up. Most people have no knowledge of this. Tina was offered that her bail, let me just go through a couple of quick steps. Tina's bail was set at $500,000 initially. She was told that if she would resign from her office and not run for office again, that they would reduce her bail and make it a manageable number, which they did. That particular action is under threat of duress. So she was in a position where the only way to get out of jail and do anything was to go along with the deal. An illegal thing that was done. We're going to address that. Prior Justice Department, other thing, not do this to a public official. Only way to remove it. Public official was voted into office is a warrantal or a recall. Neither of those happened in this case, and she was threatened under threat of duress. We're going to keep you incarcerated unless you agree to relinquish your office. So she had to resign her office. Then I was the one that recommended to her that she needed to run for Secretary of State to stay viable. And won. It was only through vote fraud, in my opinion, that she did not win. We paid $250,000 to have a recount on the primary vote because it was impossible to believe what they gave us for numbers. And when they went to do the recall, they frauded the recall. We will revisit that. A old hamburger wrapper in exchange. It was the stupidest thing in the world. Colorado made no effort of any substance to do a proper recall in any way, shape, or form. Violated Colorado law. And so with that in mind, there's still plenty of issues that have to be addressed within things around Tina. But for the most part, you know, the thing that we have to bear in mind is that she was, railroaded through this whole thing, through a trial, a prosecution that was not legal to begin with. She shouldn't have even gone to trial legally. Colorado's off the rails, and we're going to come in and deal with Colorado. It won't stop in looking at all operations in Colorado. Even the people that are in office there right now, Tina uncovered election fraud in the machines. We have people right now testifying in grand jury settings in multiple locations concerning the way that the machines were used to do vote fraud. So the question is, all those people that are holding Tina, refusing to let her go, etc., how did they get into office in the first place? Through these elections? Were they fraudulently put in office? Those are the things that are going to be challenged. And we want to keep Tina in jail because when she's loose, it's going to make a statement concerning, how they're there, what they're all about. They're afraid of that. She's iconic for both sides, both for the people that want to say, no, 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 the vote's all good. We have criminals in custody and in jail because they frauded the vote system. And the reverse is also true. They get Tina out and she's free to talk. Then
Well,
they
and
look pretty
Juan,
bad.
this is one of the things that President Trump wants to do is get it back to, hand count, same day voting, no machines. And if anything, that's what he wants to really implement because me being in California, we've seen what's happened to California with so much of the fraud. Like, I believe President Trump won California. I believe that, with the Hispanics, he won, but they keep on cheating. And we keep on seeing this happening over and over and over again. So, you also mentioned that you were on a coalition call this morning with one of his other attorneys that's actually a good friend of President Trump's. He's known from when he was in school as a young boy. Peter Tipton, you said. So these attorneys are all working together. Everyone's praying. We're seeing, what do you think is the next step? It looks like you said they might be moving her because you can't put money on her books. And also, this woman friend who saw her, is she able to have people visit her? Did this woman recently see her being in solitary? Can she still have people visit her in
Yes,
this?
they're saying she's in solitary for her protection from other inmates. And there's been a lot of drama. It's hard to go through all of it in one short step. But they're saying she's in solitary for her own protection from other inmates. Uh, it's still solitary. It's brutal. It's what you do to punish the harshest hardened criminals. And it's very demeaning. And mentally, it's just very taxing. She's a 70-year-old Gold Star mom. One of my concerns is, her son isn't here. That's why she's a Gold Star. Her son died in our service, um, Navy SEAL. So we have to be the ones to pick up. His voice isn't heard in this world. So we have to step in the gap and say, you can't do this to a Gold Star mom. She never even had a traffic ticket. I have to
Yeah.
budget for them. Okay. She it's brutal what's being done to her. Um, the the issue right this second is because they're not recognizing President Trump's pardon. Let me help your audience for a second. First off, that's a seditious action. It undermines the operations of our government, and it's insurrectionist type action. For the governor of Colorado to say that what the president has decreed in this type of a motion is they're just going to ignore it. Um, there's no case law. There is none. Doesn't matter that it's a state matter. There's no case law ever in the country in this type of an issue that allows the governor to be in defiance. So, and in fact, no presidential pardon has ever been overturned. No court has ever overturned a presidential pardon. So, on what basis Does Colorado suddenly want to write new law? Now, if they wanted this to go away, and um, they should do what was asked in the first place. And we had agreements all through the summer and into the fall to Tina's birthday that Colorado was going to hand over Tina to federal authorities, and she would go into the federal prison system where she could, without Colorado being able to stop it necessarily, be released. Uh, the federal prisons would recognize Tina's pardon, by the way.
Right.
They refused to allow her to be transferred into the federal system. They would act like, okay, we got an agreement, or whatever. It was Lucy. Every time we got close, including on her birthday, they'd pull the football away. And that's why, and the negotiators, the conversations happening from Department of Justice were just brutal, frustrating. Now, what happened was when President Trump had it, he'd reached his limit. He had said, "Get her out, figure it out." Um, he did not even contact anybody at the Justice Department. He was done dealing with people at the Justice Department. President Trump, since he came into office, only 14 people at the Justice Department are people that came in under the Trump administration. The rest of it's all Biden and Obama appointees. So it's pretty brutal over there. And then SES has a key position and positions within the Justice Department, and you don't know precisely what they're doing or what their arrangements are, but they're in there somewhere. We know the key person that's an SES person and their affiliations, and I think the truth will come out eventually, which is Senior Executive Service, the shadow government. That Cheney was running every time he had a fake heart attack, laughed about it, the shadow government. Anyway, Tina, in this situation of defiance against Trump, you know how Trump is. Everybody here knows that Trump can talk nice and everything else, and at certain times he just goes into, brute beast mode. Okay. He has all the power of the federal government. He's gone light so far. He's had within the policing side, within the Justice Department side, they've dealt with Colorado and the governor of Colorado and the attorney general of Colorado and the prison system in Colorado in a pretty light-handed way, requesting, asking. In any other case, the states would agree and shoot, they don't have to pay for Tina, and they know she's incarcerated, and let the legal process run its course. The governor should release her and allow, if he wants to keep um, pressing forward his state case, which will lose on appeal. He knows that. This is all about beating their chest and showing how tough they are. Eventually, they're going to lose the case in the federal courts. But if he thinks he still has a chance to win, he could still release her, even on bail. Agree to allow some kind of arrangement with the feds, and let the feds be responsible for her health and safety. Anything she might do to damage the country, but if she was let go, but they don't end the case, they continue to litigate the case somehow. He can do
Juan,
that. He's got a couple
can't he
different ways
bring?
to go. Well, hold on. Let me
Okay,
just
go
finish this
ahead.
one thought real quick.
Sure.
So what is the next option for President Trump is to up the ante radically. President Trump is about to issue a national emergency executive action where he's going to say that within the context of elections, because they were interfered with by foreign parties, and we have those parties here testifying to grand juries right now. Tulsi Gabbard has said we now have proof of a rigged election, a stolen election, election interference. Tulsi Gabbard has interviewed the people involved. We're taking action on it right now. These people are now in U.S. protective custody and are testifying before grand juries. With that in mind, President Trump is going to issue shortly a national emergency related to elections, just like he did with the COVID emergency. Okay, you didn't have guards on every street corner with their stuff. It's not occupying the cities. Not. It's a national emergency related to elections, and then take control all the way down to the county level of elections and the election process in America. And the most important reason that he's going to do that, there is no framework to go get all of the legislature of the states to agree, or the county clerks across the country to agree, 2,500 counties, to agree to reconstitute, start over on the voter rolls. And so slow down for a second and bear with me for a second, because you got to see this progression. President Trump issued an executive order 107, signed it at 107 in the afternoon, March 25th of 2025. The executive order 107 related to elections, and said that all states needed to clean their voter rolls and do it at the county level where people sign up to vote, and remove voters who were not allowed to vote, who were not citizens, who were there under falsehoods,
or the dead
people
people.
that were double voting, dead.
Yes. Yeah, dead people, and yeah. So continue on.
Yeah, they needed to clean their voter rolls, and it'll just take a second, but this is an important sequence you have to hear. They had 180 days to do that. They did not take action. Only a handful of all the counties in the country addressed their voter rolls in any meaningful way. So you have all sorts of people still on the voter rolls who are not legitimately able to vote. Now, the president said you have to clean these voter rolls. You have 180 days. Obviously, we're preparing for the midterms in 2026. The end of that 180 days was September 25th. Nobody did anything. 1% of the counties did anything of any substance. With that in mind, they were in defiance of this executive order by President Trump, the 107th executive order. That's really, really, really important, because you can't have a real election, a trustworthy election in 2026 without clean voter rolls. Where was the force, the power for something to be done? The clerks around the country and the governors around the country said, hey, there's no money in this. Well, they have money from their own things. They manage it at the local level. That's where the money's at. You keep your voter rolls clean. That's what the county clerk is all about. They have budgets, but they say, we don't have any money, and it's going to be hard, and we think our voter rolls are pretty good. So, the force behind this wasn't adequate to the task. So now what Trump's going to have to do, and what he is going to do, everybody listen, okay? I'm putting my entire reputation, everything I've ever done, on the line on this. You watch and see if I'm right or not. President is going to do something that is the singular most important thing he will have ever done in his life. Most important thing that President Trump will do in his entire life, his entire existence on this planet, is the executive or the emergency order concerning elections, where he is going to mandate that a national emergency exists related to elections, and therefore we're going to go in and force every county in the country to set aside their existing voter rolls and start from scratch. And everybody that wants to vote in the 2026 election and afterward will have to re-register to vote. They will have to do it with government issued ID. They will have to establish that they live where they say they live within a county so that they can be assigned to a precinct within the county. Uh, and if you, when you do it, you'll sign a voter registration card. Every clerk, every clerk's office in America has their employees are all notaries. So that will be a notarized statement of fact that you're presenting. If you lied on your voter registration, that it will be a federal offense and with mandatory minimums, and they're going to treat it very harshly from this point on. Now, any county that's not in compliance, that doesn't clean their voter rolls or thinks they can stand up and say Trump doesn't have the power to do that, in a national emergency, the president is operating in a continuity of government mode. The military enforces what he wants to say, not a police officer. They can send military into every county clerk's office in America, set the existing voter rolls aside. And by the way, there have been numerous lawsuits now presented from the federal government to the counties and the states wanting the voter rolls as they are right now for prosecutorial purposes. They want to investigate and see if they see anybody in there that's not supposed to be there, and they're going to prosecute them. And states are denying and defying these actions. When he issues the national emergency order concerning elections, he's going to be able to go in there and take those voter rolls as they exist right now and have them examined for prosecution. Mm-hmm. Besides the fact that they're corrupted, he will set them aside then, or do they be set aside? Anybody that wants to vote in 2026, 2028 is going to have to present themselves in person with government issued ID. They're going to re-register to vote. They're going to sign, and their signature is going to be notarized on their voter registration card. That all the information on the card concerning your address, your legal authority to vote as a citizen, etc., is accurate. If you lie, that is in that context, you're going to face federal prosecution. It's going to be brutal. So people aren't going to.
Juan, when do you think he's going to do that,
And,
Juan? When do you think he's going to do that?
Very, very quickly. I wouldn't be surprised. Now, Trump, this is an important detail. President Trump was doing a meeting or a speaking thing a couple of weeks ago, and there were some students standing by outside the stage where he's about to walk on. And he said something interesting. He said to the students, you know, hey, how many people do you think know what I'm about to say when I walk out on that stage? And there gets, 5, 10, 12, whatever, all the people in the White House. He says, no, one, me. Nobody knows what I'm about to say when I go out there. And he's being very close to the vest in some things. Even within his own people at the White House, there just is people that he's not dropping his guard with. So my personal belief is he's going to do it somewhere around the 21st or 22nd, because it fits within a theme that he wants to do on this subject of dark to light. And so that's the winter solstice and all of the things coming to light about the way elections have happened, et cetera. So I believe that's it for me. Others have said it's going to be sometime in September. We've had multiple sources that are credible say that there is now an intent to an agreement with Elon Musk that he's going to come in and assist in getting the vote issues sorted out for 2026 to get a clean vote. I do know this, and you have to remember for context, it was my team that put together the proposed executive order concerning elections for 2026, 28, 17-page executive order, our version, that we believe that we've been told 80 to 90% of it is what's going to be used and what Trump actually does. The attorneys are looking over it. Trump has talked about it. We'll see. And people will be able to compare what we put to the president back 6 months ago, 7 months ago, with what actually comes out and see how close we got it within the coalition like that. But the reason I mention that is because after Trump issues or declares a national emergency related to elections within that narrow bracket, and then takes control of the elections in a military sense, with military enforcing, not police officers. This is a national emergency. He can send the troops in for any aspect of what he has to secure an honest election. When he does that, Tina is part of that whole national election theme. The governor of Colorado and the prison system in Colorado is defying Trump's authority. They want to go to federal court and get a judge. If you get a judge to give me an order, I'll release Tina. We're not waiting that long. Trump's not going to wait that long. It's seditious behavior on the part of the governor of Colorado to react in this way. My opinion.
Well, couldn't President
we'll
Trump
see how it works out in the courts and the president.
Well, I've heard different people say that can President Trump bring the military into that prison and actually get her
That's what
out
I'm
that
trying to
way?
explain. That's
No, I
what I'm
know.
trying to explain. That's what I'm trying to explain.
No, I know. That's
He cannot do it. He cannot do it legally without first declaring a national emergency in that category. Apart from that, it would not. It would be a something where he's acting improperly, out of sequence. So he has to legally put this in terms where he can then act as commander in chief as opposed to just an executive in the presidential as president. Okay, in the president role, he's wearing the chief of police's cap. And as chief of police, as the executive officer, he's going through the policing mechanisms, the courts, the law, okay? And he has certain constraints that he can, command, but he's restricted to the laws that fit within those categories, okay? Now he has the authority to pardon Tina, even on a state crime. That is not in question. The only place it's in question is a couple of people in Colorado who were acting in a seditious manner, trying to undermine the authority of the executive branch. In order to physically go take custody of Tina with these people acting in a seditious manner, undermining the authority of the United States president, he will have to up the ante one notch higher and say, okay, within the context of America has been attacked, it was an act of war. That's an internationally understood thing from the Law of War Manual, conflicts between nations. To undermine an election of another country and to try to capture the leadership of another country through election fraud is an act of war. President Trump is reacting to an act of war against America by raising the bar, saying we are under attack. He takes off his police chief's cap, which is internal. He's the chief of police for how we operate internally in America. Now he puts on his commander-in-chief hat. We have been attacked by an enemy from outside the country, and I'm taking action that's beyond policing action because it's not internal, it's external. We were attacked from outside the country. We have treasonous, traitorous, seditious people operating within our bounds. We've been invaded. We have traitors in our midst. So now, as the commander-in-chief, I have to take control of the situation in a military sense to protect the Constitution which he has sworn an oath to, and the people of the United States, his constituents. And he's doing it as the commander in chief in a military sense. Now, he steps in, no court can stop him. No court has any say over his next actions because he's operating as commander in chief in a wartime condition to protect America from an attack. And he can go take Tina, put her into custody, he can release her off to the street. No court is stopping him. And if anybody within the Colorado prison system tries to stop him, this isn't a bunch of citizens showing up at the door and doing a jailbreak for Tina. She would just sit down and wait. She's not doing anything illegal. She's not a criminal. She's done nothing illegal in her entire life this way. But the president can go in there with troops. He can go in there. I've said, go take the 101st, send in some U.S. Marshals. You only need 2. And go to the door, knock on the door. And when they open it, they see 2 U.S. Marshals and about 1,000 members of the 101st Airborne in the parking lot, and the helicopters overhead, a bunch of vehicles, and they can just go take that prison over. And by the way, from a federal position, they want to stop them. With the way the prison is being operated and the examinations right now and the stuff we know about, they're totally ripe. The situation is ripe to step in and take federal control of that specific prison and maybe other ones because they're out of compliance with with federal law, and the civil rights of the prisoners in the prison are being violated. We have done that before in other states. Colorado may be in that zone. And by the way, the prison guards in that prison, this is a really, really, really important point. The governor asserts that he has the authority to keep Tina in Colorado's custody. There's no case law supporting the governor's position. It doesn't exist. Just because he says something and he cites something here or there, is he an attorney? No. He's got attorneys advising him. Okay, let's put this in context. The attorneys advising the governor, the attorney general, the secretary of state told them that they could take Trump off the ballot. In all the courts in Colorado, in the 10th Circuit, they says, yeah, we can take him off. He's off the thing. All the other states, a dozen other states, we're going to do the same thing. They race it emergency to the Supreme Court. Not one liberal justice agreed with them and stood with them. All 9 justices agreed Trump could not be taken off the ballot, told them they're crazy, they're nuts. When you get a 9-0 decision, that means you're off your rocker. Okay, nobody could even, I can't back that up. Please don't get me in this mess. Okay, so Colorado is completely off its rocker. It's the same here. They're defying a presidential pardon. Are they going to win that? Not on your life. And Trump cannot allow that to stand. So do you think that Trump is just going to sit back and wait for the courts and dither while Tina's life is being destroyed, moments of her life being shaved off every hour, every day? Okay. He's not going to do that. He knows that he has a particular timeline. A bunch of things are in place for this national election emergency. He's not issuing that frivolously. They have a clock and they're working within the clock. Unfortunately, Tina's health is such that as much as they want to move quicker, they've had to work within constraints of the clock that they have in mind. So they've got the federal investigations. They've turned the thumb screws. Colorado has been defiant. And now when Trump acts, it will be decisive, I believe. And it will go places that, Trump said, I'm going to take drastic action. I think it's going to look pretty drastic. But who forced it to drastic? The governor of Colorado. I think before this is done, knowing things that I know behind the scenes, in some of the other investigative work that we're doing related to other activities, not just Tina's situation at all. I think before we're done, at some point, it's likely that the governor of Colorado is himself in Tina's situation in an orange jumpsuit. I think the Secretary of State finds herself in a similar situation in an orange jumpsuit. I think that other persons within senior places in the Colorado system are similarly going to be exposed and do jail time and have to go through what Tina's gone through. The roles are going to be flipped. We'll see. I'm pretty comfortable I'm right on this. In the
Yes.
meantime, we don't have the moments to wait. Tina's health is failing. This isn't just being ginned up or something. And so every second counts. And we'll know if I was right on dark to light pretty quickly. Other people are saying it's going to be sometime in January. Trump isn't telegraphing to anyone
Mm-hmm.
precisely the timing, but he is telegraphing what he's about to do. National emergency, guaranteed. That's happening. We will get clean voter rolls, 1 day vote, counted where cast. Nothing transported in the trunk of the police car or grandma's knitting basket. No central vote counting centers like a lot of these states have. They will count the vote right there where you cast it in the precinct, and no magic acts
Yes.
of votes showing up,
Yes.
mysterious votes, ballots from China, etc. Then it will be tabulated there, counted where cast, and posted there. In Florida, during the vote scam stuff that the Collier brothers uncovered, what was being counted at the precincts is not what was being posted at the county or the state level. When they went and compared the books, it didn't matter what happened at the precinct, what was written down in the logbooks at the clerk's office and then conveyed to the state and for the electors going to Congress did not jive. They were stealing it in there. So when we do the count, it will be posted and public at the precinct level, and then that will be reported. Nobody will have any mischief hidden in a logbook of changed
Mm.
numbers on the vote.
Well, one
There's so
thing,
many vulnerabilities. That's why, go ahead.
yes.
Yeah.
Well, one thing that President Trump has telegraphed recently, and you probably have seen this, what the White House put out was what has happened. Eric Metaxas had put out through the White House about what happened over, in 1776 with General George Washington, the Christmas miracle, what happened where they crossed the Delaware. And literally, it was a shot in the arm that the Continental Army needed to turn the war at a very crucial point. So I think it's interesting they put that out. I think that President Trump was basically saying it might look dark now, but things are getting ready to turn. And so, Juan, I thank you for coming on. I know that you've been on a number of other shows. We all need to pray, everybody. We all need to continue to bring Tita before the throne of God and just continually to lift her up because I know that's what's sustaining her. And so I know, as I mentioned earlier, that we have a 24-hour prayer team with several hundred on there, and we are lifting Tina up. And lastly, Juan, I know as I've got to get going, and I know you do too. What lastly would you like to say to my audience about what they can do? We know we can pray. I know a lot of people have flooded the White House, a number of other things. What should people continue to do in that regard, in regards to Tina?
Well, sometimes it's not that you do something else, you go somewhere else, you do something else. No, you have to stay the course. And the reason that the House has had license to move quickly on Tina, not for the executive order or the executive emergency decree, is because there's been such tremendous pressure over the White House. And I wouldn't necessarily call it pressure, it's attention to Tina's situation. The calls into the White House were trending. You got Venezuela and Ukraine and the money, the finances, all sorts of things. Tina was number one. and has been now for several weeks. Calling the White House is not a futile effort. It helps the president know where people's attention is. And then the second thing is that prayer changes things. Either you believe it or you don't. As important as the calls and attention support for President Trump was to this, even to Tina's health and healing. And so, are we looking to men or are we looking to God above? I say that we have to, stick with it, pray Tina through this, even after she's out. There's a lot of work, healing to be done in her physical body and even emotionally. She knows that we're out here, but even as much as you might know it mentally, it's still, it has to get worked through. She's gone through really intense trauma here. So praying her through that's not wasted effort. And we will do that. There's lots of community that wants to support Tina, but those that are within the prayer side, when we look at this in the world to come, I think we will see that that was what was the most critical thing, even for President Trump and his actions, knowing that we are behind him, not just emotionally or, voting and things like that, but that, as he said himself, he knows he's here by an act of God. With the
Yes.
assassin's attempt, Bongino, Dan Bongino, put out something yesterday concerning why did he decide to resign from the FBI. And he noted that there is very, very, very competent, serious players seeking to kill Donald Trump. And he advised the president in the open, you have got to do something about your security situation. These people are real players. And he couldn't do it from behind the lines in the FBI, which is totally captured in many ways. And he felt that he had to leave that position in order to be able to be free to say what he had to say. He was a former Secret Service agent, and his conclusion is that President Trump is an instant risk from his own protectors. So there is a crisis there. We need to be diligent in prayer that President Trump be protected and have the right type of people around him to preserve his life, literally. So we're in
Well, and as
pharaohs
you
and
know,
ancient still.
Juan,
This is far, far from over.
Well, and as you know, again, with the prayer,
Go ahead.
when George Washington, many times they said that even Indian chiefs had said, we tried to kill you. And there was a protective covering over him that they couldn't kill him. So there are so many of us that we need to continue to pray. In fact, I pray for that every day for President Trump against any assassination attempts. And we need to continue to pray for Tina. And, if you're interested in being part of this Open the Heavens prayer team, please go to my website, marycrowley.com. You can email me and I'll have one of my head coordinators contact you and we'll implement you, into that system. It's a 24-hour prayer team that we have at least 5 to 7 people every half hour praying. And Tina has been on the top of this prayer list for the last 2-3 weeks now. So listen, Juan, thank you so much for coming on today. Thank you for watching. Now is the time. We are at a critical time in history. And even as we are celebrating, Hanukkah, which is an incredible story because I like to study history, when the Maccabees, when the Greek, came in and they defiled their temples. They made them literally not worship their God in the temple and the menorah and all the customs that they had. And there was just one family, the Maccabees, that said, nope, we're not going to do this. And in 3 years' time, they were able to restore the temple, take it back. And then the miracle of the only one day of oil that God literally caused the oil to burn for 8 days. So we need a miracle right now. And I believe that we're going to see a Christmas miracle. I see that something is going to happen. So Merry Christmas, everybody. Happy New Year. Let's continue to see Tina Peters being in that solitary confinement prison, that we lift her up daily and we continue to believe that if God be for her, who can be against her? So thanks for watching. Please follow, subscribe. I actually went back up on YouTube. Please, now those on Rumble, please go over to YouTube on Now Is the Time, Meri Crowley, and subscribe. They took me down many times. You know, when you talk about trafficking and things like that, you know, they take you down because that's how the cabal was making their money. And so we all need to stay the course, hold the line, and realize I believe the best is yet to come. So thank you, Juan. Is there anything else? Where can they find? Is there anything that
No.
you have up on the website, Jen's website? Anything at the end of the year specials, Christmas
Well,
stuff?
the jennifermack.com, she's got quite a few things over there and pretty fun stuff. The Megador theme stuff, I think that will remember Trump as the Megador, taking out the deep state. And uh, in fact, there's a little symbology there. I don't follow any of this stuff, but within the zodiac signs, Governor Polis out of Colorado is born under Taurus. So the bull, well, what's Trump doing? He's taking on the deep state bull in this tale of Gilgamesh type thing. Forget the bullshit, kill the bull. Now, the reason that I think that's important, even in this context, the symbolism, they want to push all this symbolism on us. That'll be their downfall because it's literally Trump is coming in to take out that deep state bull. It, you know, sometimes there's things that just are happen. It's interesting that at the core for the whole country, the first place to take out the bull and stop the bullshit within elections is going to be Colorado. And there's some kind of a symbology that's kind of a hand of God thing, having some fun. So we have the coins and the jackets, things like that. If you're buying more than one over at allpatriots.gumroad.com is where I have the sites for the more volume. And the reason I say that's because silver, I haven't raised the prices yet. I'm going to have to, but because we do proof quality, which is higher than just circulated stuff. But the silver is poised to go much higher even than it is now, dramatically. So, and that's the second thing. Trump's going to give us honest elections for honest money. Those are the two most important things he's going to do while he's in office. And in that regard, you're not waiting for him to do it by going to silver or gold. And I prefer silver for a lot of reasons.
Yeah, thank you, Juan. Thanks for watching, and God bless you all. We continue. We're going to be expecting the victory. We have to believe. That's the number one thing as I close it. The enemy is after our faith. And sometimes the enemy or Satan tries to drag on the problem and wear down the saints. But as we continue to stay the course, we continue to stay, pray, and obey, we will see the victory because we've already won. When Christ died on the cross, he said, "It is finished." And we are seated in heavenly places with Christ. It doesn't say we just kind of are above. No, it says far above all principalities, powers, mights, and dominions. So anyway, God bless you. Thank you, Juan. Thank you for watching. And Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. Let's continue to believe that we're going to see justice served at this time in history. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe, follow. And please, if you hit the, comments, it changes algorithms. It will help us, continue to expand the show. We've been shadow banned, a number of things like that. So please go over to the YouTube channel under Now Is the Time, Meri Crowley, Mericrouley. You'll see it on the screen. And sign up there and continue to share this with 5 people and continue to stay the course. God is our source. Thanks a lot for watching. We'll see you soon.